in the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hey, one of the thrills for me this spring, as we move into summer, was meeting the crew of Artemis 2. They went to the moon and they looped the moon and came back. And what's so special for me about it, and I think for everybody, we had not done that since 1972. And that is how many years ago? Let me think about it. 54 years ago, 54 years. We had space shots. We had, the space shuttle, but the space shuttle only went like 100 or 200 miles up. I think once it went like 800 miles up, maybe. Just didn't go that far. And, people were in space. Like, how do I put this? There were people, when you're in space, they just look straight up. The International Space Station is only 200. We're farther away right now from Los Angeles than the space station is from us, right? It was too close. And that's cool. There's science to do up there. But then we lost the space shuttle. We didn't even have that. And we couldn't even we had to borrow rides from the Russians. And then we started using Elon Musk's rockets. And I love Elon Musk, but we weren't going to the moon from 1972 until 2026. I was watching a movie the other night, Prince of the City. Great movie, by the way. Not perfect. It has plenty of flaws. It has some gigantic flaws. You ever see that with Treat Williams, the late, great Treat Williams, and all the cops and the corruption and everything? It's shot on location in New York, which I really, really like. It's not over-stylized, the way movies are now. It's gritty. It's real. But you never really find out why the hell that guy, decided to turn. And we didn't get a sense of how were they really stealing? I don't know. And then the next thing he does, and there was a problem with that script. There's something wrong with it, but it was a really great movie to watch. And I'm watching Treat Williams and the other guy go to Governor's Island, and I look at the movie year. It's 1981, and I'm like, yeah. In 1981, we were not going to the moon. We were just orbiting, at best, Earth. And then one day I would meet the astronauts who actually went. And I met them and they came in. I shook their hands. And it was so interesting for me to look eye to eye to people and feel their flesh and bones, when you shake somebody's hands, that they were on the other side of the moon. And in a weird way, I feel like I've been kind of on the other side of the moon. I mean, not really, but to talk to these people about what they experienced was such a privilege. Here is the interview. Greg Kelly sitting down with the crew of Artemis 2. And let's see. I introduce each one of them. So here, let's go. Welcome to the Artemis 2 crew. Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. It's just a thrill to be in your presence. How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
We're doing great.
Thanks.
Yeah?
Thanks for having us.
Does it feel normal yet? Does it feel like, are you back? No? Is it not normal?
Not normal.
No.
Yeah.
Sitting up here, no, not at all. With makeup, no.
All right.
At home doing chores, yes.
Well, I just want to emphasize and kind of tell myself again how special this is. I looked at 120 billion people who have ever lived. You are among how many who have been to the vicinity of the moon? I think you know the answer, but how many?
26, 27, 28.
28.
Mm-hmm. 28. You were 28 human beings in all of human history. It's a tremendous, you guys are in the most elite group ever. How do you look at the moon these days? How do you look at it? Has it changed the way you look at the moon?
Absolutely. The moon is it's always been a part of us. It's the thing that when you were a kid growing up and your friend was on a different continent or your brother's off at college or something, we were looking at the same moon. And now we've looked at a part of the moon that you don't normally get to see. We've looked at 18% of the far side. No human eyes have ever looked down on Oriental Basin and some of the craters that we studied and saw on the far side. And now when we look at the moon, we know it's around that left corner. And it's pretty wild to think about that.
And you're the only ones. I mean, there are only, I think, 3 or 4 astronauts from Apollo still with us. Thank God,
Legends.
Buzz Aldrin and the rest. I have to tell you, we were so thrilled. But when I heard about the burn, right, there was a burning smell inside the space capsule, I got very nervous. I didn't know the toilet aspect of it. But when you first smelled a burning sensation. I thought bad things. I'm curious about your reaction, Jeremy, first.
Yeah, it just kind of stops you in your tracks, and you know you need to start talking about this and get a second opinion, see if anyone else smells this. And as soon as I opened up the door to the toilet, I asked them, and they're like, yeah, we're smelling that too. And we just hadn't had that signature in the capsule up until that point. And so we kicked into our training, but as it turns out, it was an unknown source. So we get lucky sometimes.
And is that like in the book? Like, is that a scenario that, suspicious odor, do this?
100%.
Is it
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
And if it's a burning sensation, I take it nobody panicked. Nobody got too nervous.
It was uncomfortable.
We asked some questions.
Yeah.
We got the ground involved. But like Jeremy said, it turned out to actually be something that after some time they said they sensed this on the ground as well. And so maybe they told us before and we just didn't remember, but it was something that had been observed on the ground in processing.
Christina, I don't think a lot of people understand that the spaceship at some point falls to the moon. Gravity picks it up. You talked about that moment where you were actually under moon's gravitational pull. My first question is, does that feel like anything physically? Can you feel the gravity of the moon?
Wow. Well, it is called the lunar sphere of influence. We knew exactly when we passed into it. And I would say we commemorated it, more as a crew, not necessarily a physical sensation, except our spaceship reflects it because it will then show us the altitude above the lunar surface. And you sort of become almost lunar explorers at that moment because your point of reference is a different celestial body than it normally is. And that meant something to us.
Could you feel the gravity? Probably not.
I would say not necessarily, except that it was such a strong psychic sensation that some part of your body knows it as well.
Now, these pictures are very, very cool. I noticed that these pictures, unlike the ones from Apollo, I can see stars in a lot of the pictures. And you couldn't, like that 1972 full Earth, no stars. They talked about how black the sky is. Are cameras better? What's happening? Why can we see the stars now?
The technology has grown leaps and bounds, but it also was the hard work of our crewmates. I mean, I was the one just passing lenses and batteries most of the time, but we have some folks who can do really amazing things with cameras, and so they worked really hard to get these shots so that we could try to share that perspective.
And the shot that you just had up, the modern full Earth, the blue marble, that picture, I don't think in the 1970s it would have been very difficult to take that picture. That picture is the Earth at night. And the only thing giving the Earth illumination in that picture is the reflection of the sunlight off of the moon coming back to Earth. So if you look in the bottom right side of the Earth here, that is the sun eclipsed behind the Earth. And so that is why that ring of atmosphere is glowing. And if you look close at this picture, it does get a little grainy just because of the low light, but the northern aurora is there, the southern aurora is there, and you can see Africa, you can see Straits of Gibraltar into Europe. This picture was amazing. You could even see some glare through the window. Right there in the center, there's a little bit of white there, and that is glare because we don't get everything perfect all the time, but we work hard.
Well, I love it. And by the way, with this picture, Africa is present, and the 1972 picture is Africa primarily. And is that like because of why is that? I was first surprised that this is a very rare opportunity to get the full Earth. It is. It only happens whenever. So why does it work out that way every time? Do we know?
No.
That's a great question. I'm sure someone could answer that, though. We'll get him on here next week.
We saw a lot of Australia. We saw Antarctica. We saw Africa. We saw the U.S. But just where we launched, when we launched out of Cape Canaveral in Florida, the U.S. was going into night.
Yeah.
And so our main revolutions around the Earth before we headed off to the moon, we were seeing the U.S. at night.
Well, we're going to take a look at you guys back when you were a lot younger in the 1990s. Look, all kind of tribute videos have been made for you guys, and we feasted on them as Americans, as human beings. No, this is a beautiful one. You may have seen it, but take a quick look if you don't mind. Is that Space Camp?
It was Space
All right.
Camp.
So my question is this. Did you ever have a sense of predestination? That I just, those are awesome. And to think that I was wondering about you guys, who would be the next one? And it's you. And did you ever have any kind of earthly sense of that at some point, that maybe something like that could happen?
No, you used predestination. In fact, especially if there's young folks watching. No, absolutely not. In fact, maybe the opposite. Yeah. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. And so the opposite feeling of, I don't know if I can make it at that level, but, trusting in the people next to me and listening to my mentors helped me overcome that.
It's amazing. And by the way, Reed, you have spoken. I couldn't believe it. You said, I didn't get into the Naval Academy. It's part of your story. And that so-called setback has set you up for something incredible.
We talk about this all the time. And failure is not a bad thing in life. If you're never failing, you're never trying, you're never expanding your bounds, you're never trying to do something that is very uncomfortable. Christina, you always talk about get out there and do something that scares you. Share your dreams, share your dreams with other people. You have to fail to overcome those obstacles. It makes you stronger every time.
Now, Jeremy, there are astronauts, and you guys all had an amazing experience, but there are astronauts who have done this mission and came back and said it was interesting, but it wasn't transformative. Mike Collins on Apollo 11, and I've heard possibly the same goes for Buzz Aldrin, but he didn't feel right about that. And is that, do you ever feel, maybe this is in the abstract, does anybody ever feel pressure to have this grand philosophical transformative? I mean, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, and it's okay. I hope that makes sense, and forgive me. No,
it really does. I think it's a great question because I wondered before I went. I didn't feel pressure, but I was very curious, how my perspectives might change. And the best I can explain it to you, I think there's a couple of things that I love to touch on here. One, when we were out in deep space and looking back and you could see the Earth and the moon and the stars, there was this three-dimensionality to it that I just didn't imagine. When you see the images, you can tell things are three-dimensional, but they're still kind of flat. And even when you look at the stars, it looks like they're on a canvas on the sky. But when you're up there, it's not like that. You see that everything is position in a diorama in the galaxy is really what we're looking at, the Milky Way galaxy, and it's extraordinary. It would just catch my imagination. It definitely changed my perspective on that, but it didn't change my perspective on we're on this extraordinary planet. We're a group of humans that are weak as individuals but strong as a collective, and that when we set goals we can do extraordinary things. And what are we doing if we're not just lifting each other up and creating every single day?
Appreciate that so much. President Trump said when he launched his campaign in 2015 that America doesn't win anymore. And quite frankly, and we're not trying to get political here, but that message really resonated with me because we didn't even have the shuttle. And I feel like this was just such a solid victory for America and the world. So thank you for that. Do you have any thoughts on that? This is just a clear-cut win, and we can always use a win. And you really delivered one for us.
Yeah. Jeremy speaks very eloquently about how in this time we could all use something in the win column. And our goal from the beginning has been for this to be a win for all humanity. Yes, we take our way of life and our way of leadership with us and all the possibilities for the benefits to come back to the countries that explore and choose to devote the resources to that. But ultimately, it's a win for all humanity.
I got one other thing, if you don't mind. The comms. This is the Apollo
do me a favor. All right,
situation, right?
I had to show that the comms seemed a little bit out of whack, and it worked out. I had to demonstrate what they were like in Apollo and what they were like for them. It works, and we'll have that when we come back, and much more on this beautiful Memorial Day edition of the Greg Kelly Show. Be right back.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?